Every year, thousands of planes crisscross our skies, safely landing at their destinations, but occasionally, something terrifying happens and they vanish. I'm not talking about temporary radar glitches or brief communication blackouts, but complete unexplained disappearances where no wreckage, survivors, or clues are ever found. Buckle up, because today we're diving into disturbing times planes disappeared without a trace, leaving behind baffling mysteries still unsolved to this day. What if I told you that a massive military plane disappeared so completely it seemed to vanish into thin air? On June 5th, 1965, a US Air Force C-119 flying Boxcar was on a routine mission from Homestead Air Force Base in Florida, heading towards Grand Turk Island. Shortly after departure, radio contact abruptly ceased, and the plane disappeared entirely from radar screens. A massive search effort covered 100,000 square miles of ocean, yet not a single scrap of debris was ever discovered. Many speculate the Bermuda Triangle was to blame, but official records simply closed the case without any explanation, leaving behind an eerie silence over the fate of the 9 crew members on board. Imagine an entire military aircraft and over 100 people on board vanishing without any distress call. On March 16, 1962, Flying Tiger Line Flight 739 departed from Guam, heading to the Philippines. This Lockheed Super Constellation was carrying 93 American soldiers and 11 crew members. It vanished without a single SOS call or radar clue, triggering one of the largest searches in aviation history, covering over 200,000 square miles of ocean. The search was conducted for 8 days, but no wreckage was ever found. Flying Tiger Line Flight 739 was part of a secret mission, so secret that all men were told they could bring nothing with them that identified them in any way. No wreckage, no lifeboats, and no survivors were ever found. Strangely, some witnesses aboard a nearby tanker reported seeing a bright flash in the sky at the same time the plane vanished. But despite extensive investigations, the disappearance remains a haunting mystery. Could someone really just steal a commercial jetliner and then vanish forever? On May 25th, 2003, a Boeing 727-223 mysteriously took off from an airport in Angola. Strangely, this plane had been grounded for unpaid fees and maintenance issues and wasn't cleared to fly. Yet it taxied onto the runway and took off without communicating, and then disappeared into the night sky. Neither the plane nor the 2 people seen boarding it, American pilot Ben Padilla and an unidentified mechanic, have ever been seen again. Some theories suggest it was stolen for criminal activities, but then how do you hide a Boeing 727 completely? 2 decades later, it is still missing. How can a flight with experienced pilots vanish during perfect flying conditions? On January 30th, 1948, the British South American Airways flight Star Tiger left the Azores Islands en route to Bermuda. The plane had an experienced crew and weather conditions were reportedly excellent, but just 2 hours before its scheduled landing, the plane abruptly stopped responding to radio transmissions. An intensive search involving multiple countries scoured the Atlantic Ocean, but nothing was ever found. Investigators concluded the Star Tiger vanished into complete mystery, and today it remains one of aviation's most puzzling disappearances. What if lightning could strike twice, causing a second disappearance just 1 year later? Exactly 1 year after the Star Tiger vanished, another British South American Airways plane, the Star Ariel, disappeared on January 17, 1949. This time, the aircraft was flying from Bermuda to Jamaica. Like its predecessor, Star Ariel experienced perfect flying conditions and a routine radio check just moments before vanishing. No distress calls, no debris, just silence. Theories included sabotage, mechanical failures, or Bermuda Triangle anomalies, but ultimately both disappearances led directly to the airline shutting down due to safety fears, leaving behind unanswered questions forever. How does one of the biggest air disasters in American history leave behind nothing but silence? On June 23, 1950, Northwest Airlines Flight 2501, a Douglas DC-4, was traveling from New York City to Seattle. Seattle. It vanished while crossing Lake Michigan, prompting a frantic search effort involving boats, divers, and military aircraft. Despite finding floating debris unrelated to the aircraft, no trace of the plane or its 58 passengers was ever recovered. To this day, Flight 2501 remains one of the largest aircraft disappearances over American soil, and eerily, the lake still keeps its secrets hidden. Is it possible for a plane to vanish entirely within sight of its destination airport? On August 25, 1989, Pakistan International Airlines Flight 404 took off heading to Islamabad. The plane, a small Fokker F-27, disappeared while making its approach mere miles from the airport. Ground staff waited anxiously, but the plane never arrived. No distress calls, no radar anomalies, just a chilling absence. Even after weeks of search efforts involving hundreds of rescuers, no wreckage or remains of the 54 passengers on board were ever found, making it one of the most baffling aviation disappearances in Pakistan's history. We've all heard miraculous survival stories, but what about flights that vanish entirely from view? While this flight eventually became known as the famous Andes survival story, initially, Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 vanished without a trace. On October 13, 1972, the Fairchild FH-227 disappeared while flying over the Andes Mountains, sparking a massive search that found nothing. Authorities gave up after 8 days, declaring everyone dead, but astonishingly, survivors from the crash walked out of the mountains 2 months later, shocking the world. The mystery wasn't resolved by authorities, but by survivors themselves. Without their incredible survival, Flight 571 would remain forever lost, buried in snow and silence. How can a modern military plane vanish so completely in our technology-driven world? On July 22, 2016, an Indian Air Force Antonov AN-32 departed heading for Port Blair. Shortly after takeoff, the plane, with 29 people aboard, vanished over the Bay of Bengal without a distress call. Despite India launching the biggest search in its history, with ships, submarines, and planes searching for months, not a single shred of evidence was found. In January 2024, however, wreckage discovered off the coast of Chennai was confirmed as belonging to the ill-fated aircraft, indicating it crashed into the sea with no survivors. Theories ranged from catastrophic engine failure to sabotage, but even with advanced technology, the aircraft's fate remains unexplained. How does the most advanced commercial jet on Earth just disappear without a single trace? On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 took off bound for Beijing. The plane, a Boeing 777-200ER, was carrying 227 passengers and 12 crew members. Just 38 minutes after takeoff, during a routine handoff between Malaysian and Vietnamese air traffic control, the aircraft seemingly vanished from secondary radar with no distress call. It was still silently tracked for another hour by military radar, deviating sharply west from its planned course, cutting across the Malay Peninsula and into the Andaman Sea, and then nothing. The plane vanished completely about 200 nautical miles northwest of Penang Island. Despite being in constant communication with satellites via automated handshakes, no one knew where it was going or why. What followed was the most expensive search operation in aviation history, spanning over 120,000 square kilometers of remote ocean. For years, international teams scoured the South China Sea, the Andaman Sea, and later the desolate southern Indian Ocean based on satellite data. It took over a year before debris began washing up on islands. Small, fractured parts confirmed to be from MH370, but the main wreckage never found. Speculation has run wild. Some suggest hijacking, a deliberate act by a crew member, or even cargo sabotage. Others believed a hypoxia event where everyone on board lost consciousness and may have caused the plane to fly on autopilot until it ran out of fuel and crashed. By 2017, after 3 years of searching, the Joint Agency Coordination Center officially suspended operations. A second privately funded search in 2018 also came up empty. To this day, day, MH370 remains the single deadliest case of aircraft disappearance in history, and one of aviation's most confounding mysteries. Even the official report released by the Malaysian Ministry of Transport in 2018 offered no closure, just a long list of unanswered questions and a few harsh criticisms about how the early investigation was handled. As a result of the tragedy, new aviation safety standards were introduced worldwide: longer-lasting black box batteries, better open ocean tracking systems, and updated cockpit voice recorder protocols. But none of that brings us closer to the answer everyone still wants to know. How does a 250-ton jet disappear in the age of global surveillance? Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thanks so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I will see you again soon. Goodbye!